After much deliberation, Marvel and Sony are all set to relaunch Spider-Man for the third time in less than a decade with British actor Tom Holland. Spider-Man, though, has been a much sought-after role for years, stretching right back to the 80s. So now seems like a good a time as any to take a look at a bunch of actors who were considered for the part. Some of them rumoured, some of them confirmed, and some I probably just made up. Canon Films managed to get their hands on the Spider-Man property back in 1985, and looked to cast stuntman Scott Lever, who at one point posed as the character for a live-action cover. That film didn't eventuate for a number of reasons, including a lot of the budget being siphoned out into other movies, such as Superman 4, subtitle, the one where they fight in slow motion on the moon. Brackets, this wasn't a good one. Tom Cruise, who was a rising star at the time, was also discussed as a potential name. But ultimately, as I said, it got all ballsed up, and nothing happened. It was none other than Charlie Sheen who then made an attempt at securing the rights to the character, saying that he was perfect for the role. It was decided by others, though, that comic books and cartoons weren't the future, so that didn't end up happening either. According to Stan Lee, Michael Jackson also made an attempt to kickstart the Spider-Man franchise, with Stan Lee believing that it was his intention to play the character. Director James Cameron had a fairly good crack at making a Spider-Man movie, even writing an insane treatment that included a lot of violence and graphic sex. In addition to Arnold Schwarzenegger as Doc Ock and Drew Barrymore as Gwen Stacy, radical 90s guy Edward Furlong was set to star. Leonardo DiCaprio was also approached, but deemed the whole thing pretty shithouse, and politely declined. Around the time that the Sam Raimi films were ramping up, a number of names were thrown into the ring, including, again, Leonardo DiCaprio, fan favourite Wes Bentley, Scott Speedman, Jude Law for some reason, despite always having looked like a 45-year-old man, Heath Ledger, and Chris, I'm in the worst Street Fighter film, Klein. Isn't it weird that this is the worst Street Fighter film? I mean, after the first attempt, that's incredible. Josh Hartnett reportedly turned down the role, as he was to later also the part of Nolan's Batman. Freddie Prinze Jr. was quoted years later as saying, "Everybody kind of let me know that this was my kind of flick, everyone except the director." Sam Raimi was rumoured to say of Prinze at the time that he wouldn't even be allowed to buy a ticket to see the film. That seems unnecessarily harsh. James Franco also auditioned and ended up in the role of Harry Osborn. Apparently, a rivalry that continues today between Franco and Maguire began on set after Franco told him that he had frog-like features. Yeah, I could see that. Joe Manganiello was also offered $100 by crew to pretend to accidentally punch Tobey Maguire in the face in their fight scene.
Well, there was a crew guy who came up to me and said, "Listen, I'll give you $100 if you hit him in the face by accident." And then, and he said, some of the other guys are in on it. And I went, and I looked over and like there was an electrician plugging something in, and he just looked up to me and gave me that look like,
Tobey Frogface Maguire nearly lost the role in between the first and second film after a back injury. Jake Gyllenhaal was told to bloody suit up and get into shape, and even began extensive training. Frogface recovered in time though, and continued on in the franchise until part 3. This story was actually parodied in Entourage after Vinny Chase lost the role of Aquaman in its sequel. I use the word parody loosely because I doubt anybody associated with Entourage would know of that word, let alone how to apply it appropriately. So of course we got that Mark Webb Spider-Man reboot after Raimi's Spider-Man 4 fell through. Rumoured to be considered for Peter Parker were Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Logan Lerman, Robert Pattinson, Taylor Lautner, Jamie Bell, Daniel Radcliffe, Michael Angarano, Michael Cera, Alden Ehrenreich, Zac Efron, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Xavier Samuel, Jim Sturgis, Liam Aiken, and Anton Yelchin. Josh Hutcherson had a shot with his audition tape being released online a few years back, showing him beating up all manner of 30-year-old school kids. Donald Glover's name also kept popping up, but it never seemed like he was seriously considered. After the Amazing series was cancelled to the surprise of probably no one, it was on again when Marvel and Sony decided to join forces. There were a couple of familiar names thrown up again, along with Dylan O'Brien, Ansel Elgort, Freddie Highmore, Alfred Enoch, and The Flash's own Grant Gustin. The final 6 ended up being Asa Butterfield, Judah Lewis, Matthew Lintz, Charlie Plummer, Charlie Rowe, and of course Tom Holland. The final 2 candidates, Holland and Rowe, were asked to screen test with Robert Downey Jr., but only Holland went on later to test with Chris Evans. Still, Rowe was pretty good about it and went on to congratulate Holland on Twitter, as opposed to say, murdering him. As for Tom Holland taking on the role, yeah, I'm sure he'll be fine. He was good in The Impossible, and also, he's an actual teenager at the time of casting, as opposed to Tobey Maguire, who looked like he was completing high school for the second time. And thankfully, he doesn't look as cool as Garfield does either, who, if he wanted to be made more believable as a nerd, should have adopted Maguire's hair. Horrifying! Obviously, it's too early to tell whether this incarnation will do well or fall in a heap. And if it does crash and burn, well, I don't know, just make a new series or whatever. I don't give a shit. Thanks everyone. Now if you liked this, maybe you'll like this video on Easter eggs pointing out characters that we haven't yet seen in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, including Spider-Man. Or maybe even this video on 20 actors who are nearly Captain America. Also I have a podcast called The Weekly Planet that covers movies and comics and TV shows. I give it 2 thumbs up, and I should know because I'm in it. But what do you think of Tom Holland as Spider-Man? And let's say the role wasn't his. Who would you have wanted to see take it on? Stan Lee actually said once in the 80s that he thought John Cusack would have been perfect for the part. So there you go. Whatever your thoughts are, if you do have any, please feel free to leave them below. Alright, thanks everyone. Take care.